Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of
The Basement.
My name is Tristen.
And my name is Ezra.
And we like to talk about things theologically, practically, and hilariously. Last week, we talked about sanctification versus justification.
Yes.
That was a great conversation.
Yes.
Loved it. We're going to continue today on our surveys of the books of the Bible. And today's going to be on Leviticus. What?
It's the thing that causes a lot of people groaning. But there's reasons for
true.
it.
It's true. So, Ezra, give us a recap. What happened in Exodus before Leviticus?
They got out of Egypt and they were setting up the tent of meeting, right? The house of meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
Boom.
Yeah.
That was a good remember? Okay, cool.
Good job. That's pretty much where the book of Exodus ends, is that they set up the tabernacle, tent of meeting, and God just rests his presence there, and then that's the end of Exodus. And then we start off with Leviticus, and the entire purpose of Leviticus is God giving instructions to the priests who were only from the tribe of Levi, which we can get into how Levi was the second oldest, and second oldest son of Jacob, right underneath Reuben, I believe. And Reuben and Levi, because of something they had done, they had, I think, slaughtered an entire city because of revenge. And so their father Jacob didn't bless them as firstborn and then secondborn. And so the next person to come under that firstborn was Judah. And Judah gets that. And then you see in how the tribe's history happens, Levi ends up getting set aside as the priestly tribe. So they don't end up getting any territory necessarily. Like, they don't have an allotment of land. They just get, like, major cities within each tribe of Israel. And then that's it. Reuben, he gets a section of land within the land of Judah. And then eventually Reuben's land gets just absorbed by the tribe of Judah. Because Reuben is just, like, right, an oval right in the center. And so, because of what Jacob prophesied over his two sons. And then Levi ends up becoming the priest because they were the ones who were the righteous ones who didn't worship the calf. And so they were like, all right, you've been set aside, you've been made holy, you get to be the priest now. And so, this is how we get Leviticus. Yeah.
And now they get told what to do.
Now they get told what to do in Leviticus.
How to do it as well. It's interesting, like, there's a lot of conversations that happen about Leviticus where, like, they're like, you have reasons for not doing things, and then typically the backup for it is because God is the same today, yesterday, and forever, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of arguments on different things that you do or you don't do, like eating pork, or eating food of some sort, right?
Right.
And then, like, we're under the new covenant, right? Under the new New Testament kind of thing, where we have the understanding of Jesus is the same today, yesterday, and forever, but also too, like, the Levitical law was there too for, like, you don't eat certain animals of this kind, of this kind, of this kind, of this kind. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Like, rules for things.
I've heard it said that we are no longer under ceremonial or Levitical law, but we are under moral law. So whatever is still moral in the New Testament, that's what we do, and whatever is still unmoral in the in the New Testament, we don't do. But when it comes to ceremonial or Levitical law, it doesn't apply to us anymore, because we are under a new covenant. It's not that God has changed.
Yeah.
It's that the process of how we're able to come to God has changed. Which is where Jesus came in, and we get to
experience the newness of life.
Exactly, because Jesus died on the cross, we get to accept his salvation via repentance and declaration that he's King and Lord.
Yes.
So yeah, as you go through Leviticus, it's just a reminder of like how much humanity has to do in order to come close to being in the presence of God without Jesus dying on the cross. Because man sinned, and sin cannot exist in the presence of God. Like God is in a place, sin just automatically dissipates because it just can't exist in the same place. So in order for us not to burn in God's holiness, these people had to follow these instructions. And for us, it's our salvation through Jesus Christ. So, yeah. And in the beginning of Leviticus, we go over the different offerings. So, you have the burnt offering, the grain offering, the fellowship offering, and the sin offering. And I believe there's one other offering.
Offerings, restitution.
Yeah, restitution.
Trespass offering.
So,
law of trespass offering, the law of peace offerings, law of burnt offerings, law of grain offerings.
So,
portion of Aaron and his sons. Aaron's sons consecrated.
So, for the burnt offering, the grain offering, and the fellowship offering, these ones were voluntary offerings. So these offerings were basically offerings of like, all right, we're going to give this because God deserves it, not for repentance thing. The sin offering and the trespass offering, those things needed to be done because someone sinned. And they were involuntary, so they were like, we have to get it done. So the burnt offering was meant to just be like a sign of worship to God. The grain offering was just a sign of showing that God is my provider for everything I need. And the fellowship offering is expressing the idea of we are a community. And this one specifically, they offered a sacrifice and then they would have a meal afterwards with it. And so it was community binding, community strengthening as an offering to God, which is really cool. And then you go, and then sin offering and restitution offering. These ones are like, one of them is if you sinned directly against God, and the other one is if you sinned against another person. Like, both are sins against God. But one is like absolutely direct to God. The other is like indirectly sinning against God because you sinned against another person. And because of everyone not having the same income, not having the same jobs, people were given opportunities to sacrifice different animals based upon their income. So then it wasn't impossible to do it.
Yeah.
But it still needed to be done.
Yeah, and then also at the near the end, middle endish, where the priests justify whether the thing that they had to replace because they didn't have the money was fit or not fit for it. And then there was I think it's two different parts I heard. It was like if this specific thing happens and they have a like their sacrifice, but it's not it's like they don't have the money but they replace it with something else, then it's the priest's jobs to determine if that is what makes them clean or not.
Right, because the offering itself needed to be without blemish. So they couldn't just, if they were like poorest of poor, they would get like a turtle dove and they'd bring it in and that'd be the sacrifice. I think it was 2 turtle doves actually. And those 2 turtle doves were not just ones that they just happened to catch. It'd be, these ones are without blemish to pay for the blemish that I caused. So there's scrutiny over the offerings because you can't just bring whatever offering you want. We learned that through Cain and Abel in Genesis. You can't just bring just whatever you feel like to God. and not bring your best.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a part of the offerings where it's like, there's got to be a lot of people who have animals.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. A lot of people who have animals, and they have really good breeding
Mm-hmm.
in their animals.
Mm-hmm.
Because in order for this to work,
mm-hmm.
Which is kind of crazy.
But also, like, one of the things I saw was like, you can't breed a horse with another horse of a different breed or something like that.
Purity.
Yeah.
Of stuff, and yeah, within this book of Leviticus, there's even talk about you cannot wear clothing that is made with two different materials.
Yeah.
Which is crazy that has to be that specific.
Yeah, because now we're at a stage where we're all wearing like polyester, and it's like that's a bunch of different things that's made like with partial plastic and stuff. It's like
right, and even our clothes are 95% polyester, so there's a 5% of something else.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, if we wore this back in the day in Israel, we'd probably get stoned.
Something like that, yeah.
Which is nuts.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take a moment to pause and remember that everything that we say is from our perspective and how we're viewing it. Other than words that we quite literally read off the page, go do your own research. Don't take it as our word.
Mm-hmm. Get your own education, because I've gone to school, so I've gotten some teaching and stuff, and I'm using some of that background, but at the end of the day, you still need to do your own study.
Yep.
Get your own education.
Yep.
So, yeah. And another thing about the sacrifices is that these sacrifices were providing the food for the priests. So the sacrifices cleansed the people who brought the sacrifices and then fed the priests, because their entire job, the Levites' entire job, was the tabernacle. And because you have so many people in Israel, and because of how many things there are in this book that require sacrifice if broken, the Levites are busy. Very, very busy. And so they have no way to grow their own food, no way to harvest their own grain, that sort of thing. And so the sacrifices are a part of their food source. Which is kind of a representation of tithing nowadays. Because, like, we bring money to the church, we're sacrificing a portion of our income to God because he deserves it. And then the pastor will get the money and be able to pay for things for himself as well as help the church. And pay for things for himself as in, like, he's able to actually live.
Yeah. Because his job is to be in charge, like help with the church, understand, like just like being the shepherd of the church, and being doing his job is kind of the education and the leadership and the shepherding of the flock, and so you pay back to the shepherd so that he can continue to do his thing.
Yeah. So yeah, it was always twofold in the sacrifices. Yeah. And so, because the tribe of Levi was chosen as the priestly tribe, Aaron and Moses both came from the tribe of Levi, but Moses already had his role. He was basically the ruler over the entirety of Israel. So he had his kind of like king role, and then his brother Aaron had a priest role. And Aaron became the high priest within the tabernacle, and then eventually his sons would become priests. Interesting thing is that not all of the Levites became official priests, but they were all part of this priestly tribe. So sons of Aaron would be priests, and they would be high priests. There probably would be a couple of other family lines who would be incorporated into the actual priests. But other sections of the tribe of Levi were put in charge of taking care of items within the tabernacle and moving them. So in this book, God sections out, okay, sons of whoever, you all take care of the barrier for the outside of the tabernacle, and you take care of the bronze laver and the bronze altar. All right, sons of whoever, you guys take care of the cloth that covers all of the outside of the tabernacle. You take care of a couple of the gold articles. Then sons of whoever is the third, they would take the rest of the gold articles and the posts and the wires and all that held it all up. And so they were all split up. Which is really cool because then they all have a job. They're all a part of this, but not all of them are going to be priests. So that's going to be a very important thing. So Aaron and his sons are ordained as priests. Aaron is ordained as high priest, and his sons are just going to be learning under him. And so there's this big ceremony that Moses goes through to ordain his brother, and he sacrifices an animal, and that he takes some of the blood and he marks the right ear, the right thumb, I think the right big toe. And right hand means like authority in the Bible. And so he was ordaining them and setting them aside, making them holy, by marking them with the blood on their right side. Which is just a really cool symbol. Just like, all right, yeah, everyone in Israel knows exactly what's going on here. Like, these guys are in power now. We need to listen to them. And so Aaron and his sons are ordained, and then they're given a lot more instructions. Now we get into the clean and unclean animals. What is good to eat and what is not good to eat or touch.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's more or less what is not good to eat. Because, yeah. Chapter 11, this is where God speaks to Moses and Aaron about unclean and clean. Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, tell the Israelites you may eat all these kinds of land animals. You may eat any animal with divided hooves and that chews the cud. But among the ones that chew the cud or have divided hooves, you're not to eat these. Talks about the camel, the hyrax, the hare, the pig. Yeah, those four. Yeah, these four animals, he's like, nah, don't eat those. And I'm not entirely sure why God specifically, like, wants his people to eat animals that have divided hooves and chew their cud. I don't know why he specifically tells them to use those ones. But he does. It could be that they're pure herbivores and they don't, like, eat other animals at all. Like a cow is pure herbivore. It does not, like, accidentally become carnivore. Yeah. Pigs, understandable, they
eat anything.
They eat anything. And on top of that, they can be cannibals sometimes.
Yeah. What about goats?
Goats? I think goats are fine.
Goats eat anything, though.
They're still pure herbivores, though. They're pure herbivores.
I'm pretty sure they eat fences, too.
Well, that's just because they're dumb. Not because... they're not going to be cannibals. They're not going to eat their own kind, and they're not also going to eat another animal. They don't do that.
I know chickens do.
Yeah, that one's a weird one. I'm not sure. But it does... I don't know if they had chickens. But it does talk about, like, unclean birds, too. They must not... So, in verse 13, you are to detest these birds. They must not be eaten because they are detestable. Eagle, vulture, kite, falcon, raven, ostrich, owl, gull, hawk, osprey, stork, heron, hoopoe, and the bat.
The bat? That's not a bird.
Well, they didn't have a concept between what's the difference between mammal and bird. They had land animal, and then bird was whatever flew.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it just makes sense. And again, all of these
Are bats birds? Everyone knows that a bat is not a bird. Bats are beakless, given birth, live young, and then nurse their young with milk until they are self-sufficient. Bat's wings are featherless, and its body is covered with hair. Based upon such characteristics, science classifies bats as mammals, not birds. So what does the Bible say about these creatures? Bats are mentioned specifically only 3 times in Scripture. Isaiah warned Israel of the time when their idols would be cast away into the holes of the rocks and into the caves of the earth to the moles and the bats. The other 2 occurrences found in the Pentateuch amidst the laws regarding unclean animals. In Leviticus 11:13 and 19, Moses listed bats among the birds. Deuteronomy 14:18 also lists bats among the birds. But bats aren't birds, they are mammals. According to the skeptics, the Bible's classification of bats as birds represents one of the major scientific blunders of biological locomotion and environment rather than whether or not they have hair, lay eggs, or nurse their young. Still, some may question why the English word bird is used for the category in which bats are listed. Why not simply call a group of mammal animals the flying creatures? Actually, the term bird in Leviticus 11:13, as well as Genesis 1:20-30, is translated the word ope, which literally means flying creature. It is derived from up, meaning to fly, about, fly away. That this word is not used solely for birds. It is evident from Leviticus, where it is used with chariots in reference to winged creeping things such as flying insects. Admittedly, bats and birds have many differences, but one major commonality: the ability to fly. This is the very characteristic God used to group them together. Why are no other mammals included in this? Because bats are the only flying mammals that we are aware of. Another reason why Bible translators have chosen to use the term birds in this passage instead of the more general term flying creatures. The rationale among translators seems to be if 99.9% of all flying creatures are birds, then we will use the term birds to translate the word op. Since the Bible students should be very familiar with the figure of speech known as synedote, synecdoche, which by part is which a part is put for the whole. They should have little trouble understanding why translators continue to use the term birds to categorize all the flying creatures, including bats. After all, bats make up a very small percentage of animals that fly.
I said that. Kind of. Like, they probably just were putting it all together because they all fly. Yep. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So, look at me.
This one says something about rabbits as well.
Oh yeah, rabbits.
Not only was ridiculed for classifying a bat as a bird, but supposedly he made another mistake when he categorized hare or rabbit as an animal that chews the cud. Goats, cows, sheep, and deer all have 3 or 4 chambered stomachs and bring already chewed and swallowed vegetarian up their mouths to masticate once more. These animals chew the cud and are known as ruminants. A rabbit, however, does not have 3 or 4 chambered stomach, nor does it bring previously swallowed food directly back up from its stomach to its mouth to chew it again. For these reasons, skeptics have repeatedly criticized Bible's characterization of a rabbit as an animal that chews the cud. Note, skeptics has also charged the animal and mentioned in Leviticus 11:5, Hebrews shapen of not being a cud chewer. Since, however, there's a disagreement over the identity of this animal, translated kuni in the KJV, ASV, and NIV, the rock badger in the NASB and RSV, the rock hyrax in the NKJV. Our discussion will center solely on the rabbit. If the shapen resembles the rabbit, then whatever arguments made for the rabbit's inclusion in this list may also apply to the shapen. First, critics must acknowledge the fact that we frequently describe things as they appear to take place and not necessarily as they actually happen.
Right, meteorologists, the science.
Yeah. Meteorologists talk about the sun rising and setting even though they know very well that actually the earth is moving around the sun rather than vice versa. Right. Doctors refer to a pregnant woman as what predicted water breaking when actually the liquid is amniotic fluid and not merely H2O. Furthermore, amniotic fluid does not break, rather, the sac containing the fluid bursts. The Bible writers also referred to things that as they appeared. Paul, for example, in his discussion of Jesus' resurrection, described as some of the Corinthians who had died as having fallen asleep. Did Paul know that these Christians had died and not merely fallen asleep? Most certainly. Did the Bible writers know that the bat is not a bird? Of course. But what about the rabbit? Why is it listed among the cud chewers? It may be simply because rabbits often look like they are chewing their cud. In fact, so convincing in this appearance that according to Walter Kraser, Carolus Linnaeus, whom we owe modern system of biological classification, at first classified the coonie and the hare as ruminants. In short, it may be that rabbits were listed as cud chewers based on the simple observation.
So, yeah, rabbits do appear to chew their cud because they do just sit there and they just running around in their mouths every once in a while. So, yeah, here's another thing. It never mentions anything about horses or donkeys. And one, because they don't have split hooves, so it's very obvious. They don't chew their cud, and they don't have split hooves. So there's no reason for them to be differentiated from, like, these gray area animals. So, here's my thought process behind why God says they must have split hooves. The ones that don't have split hooves, like horses and donkeys, is that those animals have a purpose. Their purpose is transportation and carrying stuff. They have a specific purpose. Don't use them outside of their specific purpose. So you have cows, sheep, goats. Those ones, they have a purpose of giving you materials and food.
Also, goats were used for carrying things too, though.
Not as much, though.
Not as much, but they're still used. And cows sometimes.
Yeah. Goats were also used, this is where we get the word scapegoat. They were used to protect the sheep because these goats would basically be the slow ones. This is also where we get fainting goats. If there was like a wolf, a cougar, tiger, whatever, that was chasing after the sheep, the goats would basically have their freeze moment, and they would be eaten instead of the sheep. And so that's why we have the word scapegoat, because they're the ones that let all the sheep escape, and that's the reason why we have fainting goats. Is because shepherds were like, hey, we need something less valuable to protect our sheep from. Yeah. And you also have, there's a specific thing in Leviticus where, because of a specific sin that Israel does, they also have a scapegoat. The priest will lay his hand on the goat's head, declaring all the sin be passed on to the goat, and then the goat is just sent out into the wilderness because of this very specific thing.
What was the sin?
I can't remember what it was.
Oh.
But that's also a literal scapegoat. And that was just funny. But it's like, because I think what God's doing with these clean and unclean animals is, one, he's wanting to make sure that there's no contamination within the food that the people eat. Because blood is very important to God.
Because it's the life.
It's life, right. And so other animals that can consume blood, he's like, no, those ones are off the table for eating. Because they made themselves unclean, so then they'll make you unclean. And then other animals who don't go near that, he's setting those animals aside as like, they have a specific purpose. Don't use them outside of that purpose.
Yeah. I think also there's kind of a general theme. It's like, it helps you understand. He sets up guidelines. It's like, like you're saying, things are meant for a specific way. Like things are supposed to be done a specific way. Don't do it outside, or you're unclean. It's kind of like, it sets up guidelines just for how we live, right?
Right.
Don't do things outside what we're supposed to do, right?
Right.
Like there's right now in society we have a big elephant in the room for a specific thing that is becoming the social norm of how relationships are built. And I think if you follow the guidelines of how Leviticus says things are supposed to be used in a specific way, do things a specific way, so that it's one uses in its intended purpose, but also it does, like, you can use it so that you can glorify God and like continue to improve society or build or multiply or whatever. And so, like, I think you can kind of take lots of things, I guess, out of context, but technically in the same context. And I'm being very, very what's the word? What's the word?
I don't know.
Like, not in detail. Like, I'm being intentionally not saying a lot of detail on what I'm specifically talking about.
Specific?
Yeah, I'm not specific. I'm vague. I'm being intentionally vague on the whole specific, like the topic that I'm referring to, but it's the reason that like like let me a second, brain fart. The reason that it's so necessary that things are the way that they are in this specific circumstance that is the right now the hyped thing, the 0.08% of actual people that deal with this. The reason that we are the way we are is so that we can be a productive society and we can continue to grow the society, rather than this everyone turns to this specific thing and then society fails to continue because you're not being productive. And through Leviticus it tells you, don't take things out of the things that they're supposed to be doing. Like, don't take them out of the way that they're supposed to be used. There's a specific intent for a specific reason.
Right. This isn't just about, like, a bunch of rules that God needs you to follow just because he felt like it. It's like, this is a bunch of stuff that is going to be healthy for you and helpful to building you as a nation.
Yep.
Because, today, we don't think of horses as food sources.
No.
We don't.
No.
We view them as transportation.
Yep.
And that's apparently how God intended it.
Transportation, modes of transportation for things. It's like...
Same with camels. He specifically says, don't use a camel. Because, again, they were used in caravans. And they were transportation, and they carried stuff. And it's like, they had purpose.
Yeah.
And so, looking at this book of Leviticus, yes, we can see a bunch of regulations where it's like, yes, we're sinful, we can't really get into God's presence on our own.
Yeah.
Stuff. But there's also the fact of, like, hey, life is so much healthier and more efficient when we choose to use things in the way that they were originally made to be used. And so, it brings a more constructive and positive viewpoint to this book.
Yeah.
Rather than being, like, Debbie Downer and, like, constricting all of what you can do. Yeah,
the typical view of how people would see Leviticus is like, this is the reason I don't want to be a Christian, because we're so regulated and so law stricken, and you have to this. But it's like, no, the reason that we have these rules and regulations is so that we can be a productive society and we can continue to grow, rather than cause our own demise.
Right.
And create a downfall.
It's more or less like an instruction manual on how to live well, rather than a, like...
free roam packet. See what happens.
Right? It's an instruction manual on how to live and live well, rather than just, like, negating everything you can't do. And just saying, alright, you're going to be punished for this. I mean, there is punishment involved. There's consequences to your actions.
There's consequences to everything.
There's consequences to everything.
Consequences are good or bad, depending on how you look at it, right? There's correction, and then there's reason for things to happen. Things happen for a reason, and sometimes you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit because you kind of earned it. So.
And yeah.
We wouldn't have a productive society if we didn't have correction for people who made mistakes.
Right. And even, like, Leviticus even goes into what happens to people after they have given birth.
Mm-hmm.
Women, when they give birth.
Mm-hmm.
They're just given some time
mm-hmm.
after the birth of the child
mm-hmm.
to be set aside away from the rest of the people, and
mm-hmm.
then they can come back to the rest of the people. And kind of
mm-hmm.
like gives, like, again, it's the idea of blood that's kind of unclean, but at the same time, it's like it gives the mother some time
mm-hmm.
away from the rest of society
mm-hmm.
to spend a few days with her child
mm-hmm.
and give that child the care it needs right then.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. Like, having this new lens of seeing it as, like, hey, there's another purpose to this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, this is how you can actually live well. It just makes it so much better to read this.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also get some medical chapters too about skin diseases of like, so yeah, if the skin looks like this, this, and this, you priests are going to have him be quarantined for this and this amount of days, and then he comes back, and if it looks like this, and yeah, we get some medical instructions from God on how to deal with skin diseases, which is kind of funny to me.
Well, they probably didn't know how to deal about that.
Yeah, they didn't have medicine. They didn't have doctors. This was just like, so, yeah, if it looks like this, do this with this person, and then you'll understand.
And probably it's important that, like, they knew what to do rather than, like, trying to figure it out themselves and then basically causing their whole extinction because they didn't know what they were doing.
Right? Because you have leprosy, which is very contagious.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that doesn't just go away.
Yeah. And
it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's a very terrible thing.
Eats you alive.
Yeah. And Jesus heals many people from leprosy in the New Testament.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very common disease that's mentioned in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And very deadly. And Leviticus is saying this up of saying, like, how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And sadly, those people who have leprosy are ostracized rather than still being taken care of, in a sense. And because they're still supposed to be taken care of, just they can't infect everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they understand their purpose is to be outside of the rest of the people so then they don't hurt anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But also they need to live.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah. It's a weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get into the Day of Atonement. Oh yeah, so here's a crazy part. So Aaron's two sons, and who were ordained with him, ended up using the wrong type of fire in a sacrifice to God.
Mm-hmm.
And they died because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were burnt to a crisp in the presence of God because of it. And they had just gotten in there. Like, they just got in there. And Aaron is like, well, crap. Well, he has more sons, so that's good. But he's also like, well, crap. That did not go very well. We just barely got in here. And, like, God took this very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, all that the Bible says that they did wrong was they used the wrong type of fire. And the reason why God is, like, against that is because, one, it was a heart thing. They didn't have the heart of being in the presence of God. This is a holy God. We're going to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And put in the time and effort to do this right.
Mm-hmm.
And two, it was just like, again, God's holiness requires perfection. And so, because they didn't follow the instructions, they died because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron ends up in chapter 16 getting these instructions from God, and it's about the Day of Atonement.
Yeah.
And the Lord spoke to Moses after the death of two of Aaron's sons when they approached the presence of the Lord and died. The Lord says to Moses, "Tell your brother, Aaron, that he may not come whenever he wants into the holy place behind the veil in front of the mercy seat on the ark, or else he will die, because I appear in the cloud above the mercy seat." Aaron is to enter the most holy place in this way, with a young bull for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. He is to wear a holy linen tunic. Linen undergarments are to be on his body, and he must tie a linen sash around him and wrap his head in a linen turban. These are holy garments. He must bathe his body with water before he wears them. He is to take them from the Israelite community. He is to take from the Israelite community 2 male goats for a sin offering and 1 ram for a burnt offering. Aaron will present the bull for his sin offering and make atonement for himself and his household. So, as the priest, he has to make himself holy and set aside before he can represent the people.
Mm-hmm.
He will slaughter the bull for a sin offering. Then he must take a fire pan full of fiery coals from the altar. Bless you.
Thank you.
Before the Lord, and 2 handfuls of finely ground fragrant incense, and bring them inside the veil. Bless you.
Thank you.
He is to put the incense on the fire before the Lord, so that the cloud of incense covers the mercy seat that is over the testimony, or else he will die.
Mm-hmm.
He is to take some of the bull's blood and sprinkle it with his finger against the east side of the mercy seat. Then he will sprinkle some of the blood with his finger before the mercy seat 7 times. Mm-hmm. 7 times being the number of perfection. Mm-hmm. When he slaughters the male goat for the people's sin offering, now he gets into paying for the people's sin, mm-hmm. and brings its blood inside the veil, he must do the same with its blood as he did with the bull's blood. Mm-hmm. He will purify the most holy place in this way for all their sins because of the Israelites' impurities and rebellious acts. He will do the same for the tent of meeting that remains among them, because it is surrounded by their impurities.
Where's the scapegoat?
I think we may get to it. I think we're about to get to it, because he said that he will bring...
What verse are you in right now?
I'm in verse 18.
Whoa, this is completely different for me. You're in 16, right? You're reading in chapter 16?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, at verse 6, it says, Aaron shall offer the bull as a sin offering, which himself make atonement for himself. Lord's house he shall take 2 goats, and then present them to the Lord, the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Then Aaron shall cast lots for the 2 goats, 1 lot for the Lord, and the other for the lot of the scapegoat. And Aaron shall bring the goat on which the Lord's lot fell, and offer it as a sin offering. But the goat on which the lot fell to be the scapegoat shall be presented alive before the Lord to make atonement upon it, and let go as the scapegoat into the wilderness.
Wait, which one is that?
16.
Which verse?
That was 10.
How did I miss that?
Where did you jump to?
I think I went verse 6 and then I jumped all the way to verse 11. Yeah, I think I did. I know, I jumped down to verse 11. Oh yeah, so here's the scapegoat thing. Verse 7, next he'll take the 2 goats and place them before the Lord. Yes. Entrance to the me. Aaron cast lots for the 2 goats, 1 lot for the Lord and the other for Azazel. Mm-hmm. That's a weird word. Perhaps the term that means for the goat that departs, or for removal, or for a rough, difficult place. Mm-hmm. Or for a goat demon, which that's interesting.
Well, goats. It's interesting. They had. I know they had goat idols at some point too. Mm-hmm. And then goats. It seems like a lot of goat heads are very demonic. Mm. Like people that they put goat heads as a whole. That's what the whole El Chupacabra is.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
It's a demon goat. It's a whole.
That's so weird.
Yeah. So I think there's a whole probably a whole thing behind goat heads.
And sheep is viewed as pure and mm-hmm. holy and kind and stuff, and then goats are
we're evil. Yeah. Yeah.
It's that's so weird because both of them are dumb.
Yeah.
You meet a goat, he's dumb.
Yeah.
You meet a lamb. I mean, they're kind of cute and innocent, but again, sheep are kind of dumb.
Goats are cute too. They're just stupid.
Yeah, they're both kind of dumb.
Have you seen pygmy goats? Them things are cute.
They are kind of cute.
Yeah. They're not just kind of cute. They are cute.
Yeah.
Pygmy goats are cute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. For Azazel, he is to present the goat chosen by Lot for the Lord and sacrifice it as sin offering, but the goat chosen by Lot for Azazel is to be presented alive before the Lord to make purification with it by sending it into the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, this is the literal scapegoat for Israel, which is kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
We'll jump to verse 20. When he has finished purifying the most holy place, the tent of meeting and the altar, he is to present the live male goat. Aaron will lay both his hands on the head of the live goat, confess over it all the Israelites' wrongdoings and rebellious acts, all their sins. He is to put them on the goat's head and send it away into the wilderness by the man appointed for the task. The goat will carry on all their wrongdoings into a desolate land, and he will release it there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's kind of an interesting one there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we went over what I talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I love when that happens. So yeah, this entire day is specifically like for all of Israel. This is what Aaron is supposed to do. The process is purify yourself so then you can be the representative of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Then you make a sacrifice for Israel so that there's a blood atonement. And then you have a live goat that you will send out into the wilderness that carries all the sin with them, which is significant because on the cross, Jesus did both of these things. Mm-hmm. One, he died as the blood sacrifice, and two, all of the sin of the world came upon him, and he was weighed down and he was separated from God. Eli, whatever the other Hebrew words are in this, he's like, my God, why have you forsaken me? That's when he has all the sins of the world on him.
Oh, the Eli, that one?
Yeah, my God, why have you forsaken me?
Yeah, there's actually a song about that. It's pretty cool. It's called "It Is Done" by William Toll.
Oh.
His story pairs like dun 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 dun. I think it's like that, and then like it's like Ila he labasani. I am stunned.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. That's cool.
Yeah, and then like the beginning, he's like, God, can you hear me? I'm under the victory. It's a really cool song.
That is cool.
After the podcast, we can listen to it. It's a really good song. I definitely would recommend go listen to William Toll. He made this. It Is Done. This is not a sponsorship. It's just a really good song.
Right. We're recommending good things.
Yes, all good things. All good things.
Right.
Samantha. I don't even know a Samantha.
All right. So after that, it talks about forbidden sacrifices and basically things that, like pagan things. This is pagan things that you don't do, which is self-explanatory of why God says that, because you're doing a poor job of sacrificing to God and are actually inviting demon stuff. Because God says in verse 6 of 17, the priest will then sprinkle the blood on the Lord's altar at the entrance of the tent of meeting and burn the fat as pleasing aroma to the Lord. They must no longer offer their sacrifices to the goat demons they have prostituted themselves with. This will be a permanent statute for them throughout their generations. So yeah, goat demons. We've already said that, but that's interesting.
Yep.
And
so,
yeah.
Then you get 18, 19, and 20. We can.
Well, yeah, those are pagan practices. 19 has a lot of good stuff in it.
Moral and ceremonial laws.
So 19 has a lot of good stuff in it. So it has stuff like respect your mother and father. Keep the Sabbath. When you harvest your land, you are not to reap to the very edge of your field and gather the gleanings of your harvest. You must not strip your vineyard bare or gather its fallen grapes. Why? Leave them for the poor and the foreign resident. I am the Lord your God. which we see in the book of Ruth why that's a thing, because the widows and the poor would come and grab portions of that grain or grapes or whatever in order to live.
Yeah.
So God was like, hey, don't do this. This is for everyone to be provided for. And another thing about like how to live well as a society.
Yeah. What chapter in Romans does it go over the moral laws again?
Chapter in Romans.
Because like everything, because under the new covenant, everything is redone except for the keeping the Sabbath. Like it's not except for keeping the Sabbath, but he's not like he doesn't restate it because yes, it's important, but it's your day. Like it's you do things for the Lord. Like I think it's Romans 14 is what all falls under.
Not sure.
Let me find it real quickly. You keep going back on your thing, and I'll tell you when I find it.
Okay. So then it goes on to say, you must not steal, you must not act deceptively or lie to one another. Perfectly reasonable. Got it. You must not swear falsely by my name, profaning the name of your God. I am Yahweh. Also, again, that makes sense. You must not oppress your neighbor or rob him. The wages due a hired hand must not remain with you until morning. You must not curse the deaf or put stumbling block in front of the blind. Don't be a turd. Makes sense. You must not act unjustly when deciding a case. Do not be partial to the poor or give preference to the rich. Judge your neighbor fairly. You must not go about spreading slander among your people. You must not jeopardize your neighbor's life. I am the Lord. All these things are sounding very reasonable. Like, okay, this makes sense. Just be a good person. Don't be mean to other people. Here's a big one. You must not harbor hatred against your brother. Rebuke your neighbor directly and you will not incur guilt because of him. Do not take revenge or bear grudge against members of your community, but love your neighbor as yourself. I'm the Lord. This is what Jesus quotes when he talks about the greatest commandments. Love your neighbor as yourself. Then God talks about you are to keep my statutes. You must not crossbreed 2 different kinds of livestock. Sow your fields with 2 kinds of seeds. Put on a garment made of 2 kinds of material. Yeah. Purity's sake, but also like with that, it keeps that line efficient.
Yeah.
And is like it keeps the animals within the purpose that they were designed for.
Yeah, and it doesn't cause more like issues and things. Like you see dog breeds now. This is a whole side topic. Right. But you see dog breeds now that have been so many times crossbreeded that like they have a lot of health issues.
Yeah, it's very, very true.
Yeah. So this is what what I was referring to. So right in 14 says, receive one who is weak in the faith, but do not dispute over doubtful things. For one who believes may eat all things, but he who is weak eats only vegetables. Let not him who eats despise him who does. Let not him who eats despise him who does not eat, and let not him who does not eat judge him who eats. For God has received him. Who are you to judge another servant? To his own master he stands or falls. Indeed, he will be made to stand, for God is able to make him stand. One person esteems one day above another, another esteems every day alike. Let each other be fully convinced in his own mind. He who observes the day observes it to the Lord, and he who does not observe the day to the Lord, he does not observe it. See that? He who eats to the Lord, eats to the Lord, and for he gives God thanks. And he who does not eat to the Lord, he does not eat, and gives God thanks. For none of us live to himself, and none of us dies to himself. For if we live to the Lord, and if we die to the Lord. Therefore, whether we live or we die, we are the Lord's. For to this end Christ died and rose, and lived again, that he might be the Lord of both the dead and the living. But why do you judge your brother? Or why do you show contempt for your brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. For it is written, as I live, says the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to God. Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, that applies to this of, like, Paul is writing about how some people are sticking to more ceremonial laws, and y'all shouldn't fight over whether or not those are necessary or not. Just let them live a life that they believe is set apart as holy, because it's a ceremonial law. It was originally made so that they could live better lives. So let them do it.
Are they living for the Lord? Let them live for the Lord.
If it's moral law of, like, you don't steal, kill, destroy, then yeah, that should be upheld by everybody. So yeah, and as
morality is defined by God.
Because he is the source of holiness, and he is the one who, he created all things, so he knows how everything works. But he is pure, and we need some standard of morality. And what better standard of morality than the one who created all things, and the one who is trying to make a way for us to be in his presence, and trying to have us ready and not die while we're trying to meet with him. So there's even more stuff in here that he talks about. Holiness in the land, holiness of the priests. There's some sexual things that they're not supposed to do. And then there's some things that they do, like sacrifices, that they have to do after nighttime. They have to do a sacrifice to God in order to purify themselves. And then it talks about priests getting their food from some of the offerings. And acceptable sacrifices, no blemishes, and all that. Then we get into holy days. Holy days, the Sabbath. Here we go. Verse 3 of chapter 23 goes over holy day. This is about the Sabbath. So it says, verse 3, work may be done for 6 days, but on the 7th day there must be a Sabbath of complete rest, a sacred assembly. You are not to do any work. It is a Sabbath to the Lord, wherever you live. These are the Lord's appointed times, the sacred assemblies you are to proclaim at their appointed times. And it goes into the Passover, the festival of the unleavened bread. And then it goes over more stuff you do during the Sabbath. Day of Atonement, Festival of Booths, and Tabernacle Oil of Bread, Sabbath years, and Jubilee. Now, this is a really cool thing. Sabbath years and Jubilee. So every 7 years, within the tribe of Israel, God says, all right, every 7th year, you're going to let your land rest. You're not going to do anything to it. So what happens is that on the 6th year, you're going to get a double portion, so that you're provided for that 7th year, which is the same thing that happens for the people for manna. They get this example for manna. They get a double portion on the 6th day, so then they don't gather it on the 7th. Same thing with the crops. And already we have this idea within harvesting, where we let the land rest, and most often it's with a ground cover plant, so then nitrogen is back in the soil, and nutrients are just constantly sucked out of the ground. Same concept applied here. So every 7 years that happens. Every 49 years, they let the land rest for 2 years. And they get a triple portion on the 48th year. So then they're provided for. The year of Jubilee is also a time where land is given back to original owners.
Mm-hmm.
Slaves are set free
Mm-hmm.
from their from their slavery, basically. Their slavery in Israel was, all right, I have a debt I owe to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to work for you
Mm-hmm.
so then I can pay that off.
Mm-hmm.
That's what slavery was. And then once their debt is paid, they're free to go.
Mm-hmm.
But because of how Jubilee worked, God's like, all right, their debt probably is so high, they may have been working for you for 50 years. Let them go.
Mm-hmm.
And then God had a big thing about land staying within the family.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to make sure, because he had allotted the land to each tribe,
Mm-hmm.
wanted to make sure that the family lines stayed in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to make sure that the land goes back to the original owners,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the promise that he made.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I promise this land to you. Make sure that that land gets back to originally owned it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is so cool,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. I mean, some people probably felt like gypped out of it,
Mm-hmm.
because it was like, we bought this land with the intention of living here and producing crops and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But God's intention was that I made a promise long ago.
Mm-hmm.
I intend to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just so cool.
Are they still are the lands still owned by?
It's a big contention right now. So, the big, the conflict between Israel and Palestine. So, Israel still believes that they should still keep their land, because that's the land that God promised them.
Mm-hmm.
And then Palestine is like, hey, we are here. You can't just take our land, because we're here. The Israelites were scattered because of Roman rule. They were scattered because...
Is that that's the whole war that's going on? It's like they're wanting their land back, and so...
Yeah. So this is like a pretty age-old conflict that's happening over the land of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And the actual land of Israel that they have now is smaller than what they actually had when they conquered Canaan. So, and they've even given up portions of the land to the Palestinians, like the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Like, those are already given up to the Palestinians. And the Palestinians are like, nope, you guys stole it from us. Because the UN drew up plans, and the United States was kind of a big leader in this, of like, all right, the Jews need their land back. We're going to draw up part of the map, and they kind of just drew lines, said, this is Israel, and y'all have to deal with it. And so this is kind of the conflict that has happened, because land is now being proportioned to a people that were kind of taken out of that land, and now just somebody else's land just becomes an Israelite's land, and they're just like, what the heck? Like, why'd you do that?
Well, I think if there was biblical understanding, I think it would make more sense, but I don't know.
Well, at the same time, it's like, we've also been here. Like, y'all were scattered. Y'all gone. Why are you taking lands that we have been living in for decades now?
Yeah.
And so they're just like, this sucks. We don't want to put up with this.
Yeah.
And so the constant conflict of Israel feeling very, like, they feel like they deserve to have the land because of what God promised them in the Bible so many centuries ago. And then the Palestinians are like, this was our land because we had been living in it. And then now some foreign government came in and decided this for us. And so that's the major conflict. And Israel has kind of made enemies all around it too. And not just within its land, but kind of just all around it. So, yeah. It's a major conflict nowadays, because there's lives being lost on both sides for terrible reasons. And it doesn't have to be this way, but it is what it is, because just people are angry over the fact of land that they used to own in their families, and now it's just not the same as it was.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's a really sad conflict, honestly. And, yeah, I hope at some point there will be peace over there.
Yeah. Isn't there like a... What about Revelation, like the end times? There was like... Isn't there something about land?
Oh, there's a whole bunch of stuff about land in Revelation. But there's also a lot of symbolism in it, and it's a hard thing to just look at Revelation and be like, all right, this is literally what's going to happen, and stuff. Because Revelation is not as much about predicting the future as it is about giving a conclusion recap to what has already happened.
What has already happened?
Yeah, what has already happened. John wrote Book of Revelation in like 90 AD. And he was on the island of Patmos, kind of isolated by himself, and God gives him these visions. And this book is not about predicting the future. It's about giving God the glory and giving all Christians a sense of hope to what is to come in the future. But it's not just going to be like lining out all these events of like exactly what's going to happen. So, yeah, take Revelation not literally every single time you read it, because it's not going to make 100% sense, and there have been a lot of people who have tried to predict the future and it has failed.
Well, obviously.
Yeah, because they read the Bible and then tried to take Revelation very literally, and it didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, there's, like, I think, yeah, I don't know, it's just, there's little thoughts that bounce around in heads, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you can be a pre-millennialist, amillennialist, post-millennialist, which is talking about the 1,000 years that Christ reigns over the earth. That's a heated debate also, like, whether or not the Christians will be ascended to heaven before, during, or after the tribulation on the earth. Like the bowls of wrath and stuff like that. Like, there's contention over stuff that happens, but I think there's a professor by the name of Lanny Hubbard who does a really great class on the Book of Revelation. And his focus is on, like, this is a book of worship to God and of recognition that there are good times that will come for humanity that has sided with God. So don't give up hope. And that's the purpose of the book. And so, yeah.
It would be kind of cool. This is random thing that has to do kind of randomness.
Right.
Is if after Harvest or whatever, after that, we started, because I know you're doing some school stuff. Like,
well, kind of, it depends.
When do you get done with school?
So I'm kind of done. I'm done with my associate's degree.
Oh, okay.
Right now. And I'm kind of taking a break from school because I'm trying to figure out what my next step is. But, yeah.
It would be kind of cool is if some of the podcast episodes we actually do, like, classes and, like, learn while we're on the podcast. So, like,
that'd be kind of
we're
cool.
taking a class and learning so that people can learn with us because they're part of the conversation.
Right?
We're all learning together kind of thing. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be kind of cool.
Do like a series of apologetic classes.
That would be cool. So, yeah, Sabbath years and Jubilee. I love this idea of, like...
That sidetracked so far.
Right, it went sidetracked really, really far. But I love this idea of God being like, all right, you're going to let the land rest, and then we use this idea today without realizing that God already made a plan for that.
Yeah.
And he also was like, give land back to the original families and set the slaves who are in your debt. Set them free. And it's just like a really cool thing that God is like, all right, everything gets a reset. And it's a nice thing. This is not one of those things where it's like, you shall not do this. This is one of those things where it's like, this is good for all of you. Rejoice. That's why it's called the year of Jubilee, because everything gets a rest and everything gets reset back to what it should be. It's like, that's cool. And then God goes into like covenant blessings over Israelites if they keep His commandments, and then He talks about funding the sanctuary and all that for um, what the Israelites need to do in order to get the tabernacle actually started properly.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then that's kind of like the book of Leviticus,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, as we've said before, it is a guideline on how to live life well and build society,
mm-hmm.
not just laws and regulations of do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a really cool book.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a boring read.
It's not that it's boring. I think it's like a lot of people like to take it and put like in a bad light.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so yes, I wouldn't say it's boring. I would say we don't put it in the bad light that most people put it in.
Right.
Like, put it in the light of like this is kind of a way that you should live, and it gives better light for a productive society rather than like, all right, we're gonna put some chains on your arms and make sure you do things in the specific way that we want you to.
Right.
Like, it's like, follow this and you'll probably have a successful life. Like,
yeah,
it's kind of, it's like there's things that are kind of like no brainers that are like in there. It's like, well, no, duh. I was like, well, it's in there. It's like, it's good to have it written rather than not.
Right.
Because sometimes common sense is not so common.
It's true.
And so you have something written down. So it's like, here, brainless nut job. Here's the.
It's not like we're robots receiving code.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sometimes it's just good to have a little bit of guidelines.
Mm-hmm. Because we're not fully knowledgeable of everything that we should do.
Yeah, we're not perfect.
Yeah, we're constantly learning all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, God, being the creator of the universe, you would think that He would know exactly how everything works.
Mm-hmm.
So why not ask the creator?
Mm-hmm.
He's got the blueprints already. He made those.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope that because of our discussion today, that you won't think of Leviticus as like a very hard book.
Yeah.
To read.
Yeah.
And like one that you just are discouraged about reading through like your yearly Bible plan or something. Oh no, I'm reading Leviticus. Well, only 20 weeks of this, so and then you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And like, I literally like listened to all of Leviticus yesterday and today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like I think 4th time listening through it.
Oh yeah.
So I think each time I listen through it, it gets easier. Like, it's not like I guess. Because my first perspective of it's like, oh, look at all these rules and regulations, and it's right, but it's like, why look at it that way? Like now, like that I've listened to it a few times. It's like, it's not as negative and as condemning as you'd think.
Right.
It's like a lot of people do, and like I know, because for me, when growing up, my whole thing is I would go and throw verses from Leviticus 18 at people all the time, and like get Shrek rub. But it's like, this is how you're doing productive society in that time. It was kind of telling you, hey, do these in this way, you'll be more productive in society. And also too, like the typical one that's thrown a lot that I know for like tattoos and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, don't tattoo yourself for a god. Don't.
It just makes sense.
Yeah, like yes, honor your body and respect your body and stuff like that. But if your idea is tattoo yourself in a way that honors God and stuff, I think that's still honoring your body and having your body as a temple. But that's also up to someone's perspective.
Right.
You can throw that in like, okay, well, inking your body is doing something else where it's like you're.
It's also permanent.
Yeah, it is permanent, but it's like some people could say, "Oh, that's not productive," and it doesn't honor your body. But other people say it does. It's like
that's another ceremonial law.
Yeah, don't condemn somebody else in that way.
Right.
We're under moral law.
Right. So. When that becomes immoral, like it's something grotesque you are putting on your body, or something that worships an idol, that's where it crosses the line.
Yep.
But if it's just like something that is super sweet, like you have an item for each of your family members, you want to remember them by.
Yeah.
It's like, you know.
I got a friend who, what he did is, him and all of his siblings actually have numbers on their thing, because it's like I'm the number, this person in my family. It's just kind of like a whole thing they did as a family.
Yeah, see, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of cool. Like, just little things. It's like, oh, that's sweet. Or like I've seen some where they'll do like a handprint, like a fingerprint kind of thing.
Oh,
like your fingerprint, two fingerprints put together into a heart. I've seen that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Or I've seen like when a baby's born, like they have their little footprint.
Oh,
I've seen that tattooed on things.
Oh, that's
like,
cute.
It's like all different things. Are just like that's super cute, and it brings recognition to God, because like God gave you this child.
Right.
Look back on that. So.
Yeah.
Kind of, it's how you want to look at it. You can look at it, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much.
We just want to live a productive society.
Yeah.
Remember, this is our words, our thoughts.
Right. And we want to hear your thoughts on some of this stuff.
Yes.
And so, yeah, don't be afraid to ask us questions.
Start
discussions.
Leave comments down below.
We want to start discussions, not win arguments.
Yes. So, thank you for joining the conversation.
Indeed. Well, Ezra, you want to pray us out?
Okay. Dear Jesus, thank you for another day. Thank you that you love us and you care for us. Thank you for another opportunity just to talk about the Bible and kind of just hear the things that you have to say to us, God. You are good. You are great. You are powerful. And I just pray that we honor that, and we show that we honor that, God. Give us give us the ability to be humble at all times, and help us to keep humble. Give us wisdom, and keep us strong, and keep our hearts on you. Thank you for loving us, and I just pray for continued fellowship. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Well, thank you for joining us. Before we go, isn't there something you want to tell us?
What?
Something that involves a move?
Oh, yeah. Was that A3?
Yeah.
A3 pawn to A3.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Hey, that's why I'm here. No. But, yeah. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time on
The Basement.